A short while ago, we put out the video 10 infamous real-life wrestling fights. It's beautifully narrated, and hey, send me presents, I deserve it, I've always deserved it. But it turns out that there are so many recorded cases of wrestlers getting all up in each other's business that we're bound to miss some out. Well, far be it for us to leave our disturbing fans hungry for violence. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 more infamous real-life wrestling fights. Number 10, Tracy Smothers versus Tom Pritchard. We kick off with a roadside tussle over hurt pride. Dr. Tom Pritchard had made some comments about Smothers injuring some of his opponents, and after Smothers had attempted to prove him right by trying to shoot on him in a match, the men tried to settle it on the side of the road mid-drive to the next town. When a police car showed up, Pritchard told the cops that they were practicing wrestling moves, and thankfully, the fuzz bought it. Number 9, Brock Lesnar versus Chris Jericho. The most recent kerfuffle scuffle on this list took place at SummerSlam 2016, after the controversial finish of the match where Brock was supposed to safely bust open Randy Orton with his elbow and instead scalped him with his elbow. The locker room was in a state of disarray. Basically, no one had told the rest of the stars the finish. Even ref Mike Chioda didn't exactly know. So when Y2J saw it unfold, he thought Lesnar had gone off script and made a beeline for Gorilla. Lesnar cussed Jericho out, and the two ended up laying hands on each other, with Jericho even forcing Brock up against a wall until they were separated by Vince McMahon and Triple H. Scenes. Number 8, Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty. When the Rockers split in that infamous barbershop skitlet, the team of Jannetty and Michaels had already come to blows behind the scenes, with a decidedly different outcome. Tensions between the two were built for months because talented people have egos, and after egging on from Roddy Piper, the two went to blows outside a bar in 1991. Michaels came off far worse than Jannetty, and the police were all set to haul Marty away when the Macho Man Randy Savage managed to smooth things over by claiming the scuffle was part of an angle. Number 7, Booker T versus Batista. Who would you expect to win in a fight between Booker T and Batista? If you said Batista, then you and I have some Harlem heat. Do you get it? So in early 2005, Batista had said some very mean things about the SmackDown locker room, implying they were the B show, not as good as Raw at all the things. Batista then moved to SmackDown, which is just super orcs. During a photo shoot for SummerSlam 2006, Booker T took Batista up on those comments, and the two retired to a side room to share a knuckle buffet. Booker could be seen with a black eye on TV afterwards, but reportedly, he had dominated the fight. Number 6, Awesome Kong versus Rebby Sky. During a TNA tour of England in January 2016, years of bad blood between Awesome Kong and Matt Hardy's wife Rebby Sky came to a head. The pair were supposed to share a dressing room at the MEN Arena, and Kong was not happy about it. When she saw Sky's bag as well as Hardy's and their babies, she grabbed them and threw them out of the locker room. After an argument ensued, Kong rammed Sky into a wall before choking her out right in front of her baby son. The TNA security team and producers broke up the attack and sent Kong on the next flight out of England. A couple of days later, she was fired. Number 5, the Moondogs versus the Star Riders. Over to the USWA now in 1992 in a fracas between the Moondogs and the Star Riders. So the Moondogs were notorious for playing rough, especially with new wrestlers, as new wrestlers Rock and Blade of the Star Riders found out. During a battle royal, Moondog Spot, without warning, hit Rock in the back of the head with a chair, giving him a concussion. This didn't sit well with Rock, who the next day taped his hand and popped it inside a leather glove so it was hard as concrete. When he got to the ring, he took Spot into the corner and started wailing on him with shoot punches. When Spot's partner came to intervene, both Star Riders ran out of the ring, grabbed their bags, and drove off. They were actually stopped by the cops and told never to return to Tennessee, or the Moondogs would likely murder both men, and the cops wouldn't be responsible for that. Number 4, Ken Shamrock versus the Nasty Boys. The world's most dangerous man versus the tag team whose offense primarily revolved around their armpits. Take my money. Except Ken Shamrock nearly died, so maybe it's not the time for jokes. The Nasty Boys are the joint chiefs of their local chapter of the Arsehole Club, and one night in 1990, Brian Knobbs was sat near Ken Shamrock and some friends and annoyed them by constantly grabbing the boobs of a lady in their party. A skirmish between Shamrock and Knobbs ensued, but Shamrock couldn't let the matter drop. He later stormed their hotel room to restart the Barney, but was struck from behind by Sags holding a telephone, and the two men kicked him while he was knocked out, giving him a huge concussion as well as breaking his eye socket and his sternum, almost killing him. It took Shamrock a full year to recover from this attack. Number 3, the Harris Twins versus Shawn Michaels. You'll have noticed a trend with these lists. Shawn Michaels is a slight D-bag. Shawn Michaels gets into a fight. Shawn Michaels loses said fight. In 1995, Ron and Don, the Harris Twins, didn't take kindly to HBK sounding off they wouldn't be missed after leaving the WWF later that week. week. On their way out and clean out of fucks to give, the Harris brothers waited until Michaels went into the shower, locked the door behind them with a chair, and when the showstopper emerged, grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall. Michaels chose not to antagonize the two giant brothers any further, so they settled on slapping him hard across the face and letting him think about what he'd done. Number 2, Eric Bischoff versus Ric Flair. Gosh, my dad Eric Bischoff and Ric Flair did not like each other back in the day, so much so that WCW had no choice but to make an angle out of it. In 1998, the two went blow for blow in the legal sense after Bischoff suspended Flair for no showing an event that Flair had told him weeks in advance he wouldn't be attending. Weirdly, the punches didn't fly in WCW, rather it was 5 years later when Bischoff emerged Cheshire Cat style in WWE when Flair decided to settle it Atlanta style. Flair stormed into Bischoff's office and informed him he was about to hand him his bottom, which Bischoff thought was a joke until the fists started flying. The two had to be separated by Arn Anderson and were forced to make peace by Vince McMahon himself. And number 1, Goldberg versus Chris Jericho. Who would you expect to win in a fight between Goldberg and Chris Jericho? If you said Goldberg, then you and I have some Harlem heat. Do you get it? I don't. Anyway, Y2J and Goldberg came to blows in WWE over issues stemming from their time in WCW. Back in the 90s, Jericho tried to work an angle between himself and Big Bill. Goldberg has shown no interest based on Jericho's size. Years later, when Goldberg resurfaced in WWE and after some stirring from Kevin Nash, the two men rekindled their mutual hatred. According to Jericho on the Bubba the Love Sponge show, Goldberg put his hand on Jericho's throat, who responded by taking him to the ground and locking him in a front face lock and just holding it on, repeatedly taking Goldberg back down and out-wrestling him until the two men were separated, which has got to be a sore spot for the once master of the squash match.